Good evening, everyone. 11:50 p.m. on Sunday, the 7th of May, 2023. And of course, here she is, Candy the Wonder Pop, jumping in. All right, sit. Come here, Paul. Lay down. Lay down. Down. Speak. 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 Yeah, that's better. There you go. All right. Quick video tonight, springboarding off one that I did about a week ago, the one with my 3 predictions about what I see very strong potential for in the coming months through to the end of this year. Thank you to who's ever watching. You're welcome to comment. The chat is on. At any rate, cutting right to it, the predictions I made a week ago. The second of the 3 predictions was return to things like mandates. My prediction was that I see very strong potential that come the fall, September, October of this year, that there will be they'll announce that there is a new variant of COVID out, perhaps saying it's more transmissible, more virulent, more potential to be serious, potentially fatal, and that they'll mandate another jab for it. And they're working on that. We've been told that in June of this year that Moderna, that Pfizer are going to be told which variants to target for a fall booster. And I could even see it being twinned with the flu shot, so that you get a combo shot. And I know there's a tendency for people to think that, the insanity that we lived under, where you couldn't sit down in Canada, you couldn't sit down in a coffee shop and have a simple coffee without showing proof of your status. And that ended pretty much, I think, in March of 2022, and when the mandates kind of eased over time. It was in September of 2022 when Canadians, unjabbed Canadians, could once again get onto a plane or a train. But anyway, the Liberal Party of Canada has released their platform for whenever our next election is. I'll touch on that, when Canadians might expect to go to the polls again. But they've released their platform, as it were, and I've linked it down below. It's our platform, and specifically on proof of vaccination. I won't read the full thing, just 2 little bullet points. A re-elected Liberal government will, and here's what they say they will do. They will launch a $1 billion COVID-19 proof of vaccination fund to support provinces and territories who implement a requirement for proof of vaccine credentials in their jurisdiction for non-essential businesses and public spaces. The second bullet point is that they will table legislation to ensure that every business and organization that decides to require a proof of vaccination from employees and customers can do so without fear of a legal challenge. Where does that get us? Basically, to my reading, is that they are saying they want to reinstitute a proof of jab requirement, ID, probably be digital, proving that you've had the COVID jabs. I'm not going to say anything good, bad, or otherwise, because I have to be careful. I've had videos taken down. I'm not a medical expert. I listen to the experts on both sides, on all sides. I want to hear differing perspectives, not just one side. And unfortunately, I have to dig and seek out sometimes for alternative viewpoints, those whose views go against what I'll call the mandated or the approved script, but you can find it although I suspect it's going to get significantly harder to find it. So anyway, that's what they're saying a re-elected government will do. When can Canadians expect to go to the polls? Hard to say. Right now, the Liberal government, Justin Trudeau, is in a minority situation, which means I don't know exactly how many seats he has in our legislature, but he does not have the 170 seats needed to govern with a majority. So he has something of a loose coalition, not a formal coalition, but a loose coalition. The NDP has agreed to prop him up. So on any votes of confidence that could topple the government and send us to an election, the NDP has agreed on an ongoing basis to prop up the Liberals and give them the votes they need to pass whatever legislation they want to put out. So what would force an election? The last election that we had was in 2021. There's a law, fixed election law, that says an election has to take place 4 years, within 4 years of the last election. So 2021, so we'd be looking at 2025 before an election is absolutely required. But prior to that, one of two things would have to happen. First one, and I consider this very unlikely, the government would have to be defeated. A piece of legislation deemed a matter of confidence, and the government can say this is a confidence motion. And if the legislation was then to fail, that means that Justin Trudeau's Liberal government has lost the confidence of the House, and then the Governor General, the King's representative, calls an election. I don't see that happening. I don't see the government being voted out. I don't see their legislation not passing. The other way is the same way that we had an election in 2021. What happened was Justin Trudeau was elected in 2015. He had a majority. He ran the full 4 years. At the end of the 4 years, we had a second election in 2019. And in 2019, he was returned with a minority. And then roughly 2 years into that minority, he went to the Governor General, asked the Governor General to dissolve Parliament and to call an election. And that's the way I would see it happening again, this time. I don't think the NDP is going to gang up with the Conservatives and the other opposition parties to vote Trudeau out, to put forward a vote of no confidence. I think Trudeau will wait for an opportune moment when he thinks he's high enough in the polls, like he did in 2021, and then he'll go to the Governor General and ask the Governor General. I don't even know who the Governor General is anymore. Last one, Dave Johnson. I don't know. I don't keep track close enough anymore. Usually Payette. She was removed. But at any rate, go to the Governor General, ask that individual to dissolve Parliament, call an election, and then it's, the elections in Canada, it's not like the US. Our elections are 2-3 weeks long, and then we vote. And if Trudeau gets back in, either with a majority or a minority where he has the support of the NDP, then he can go forward on what, and you can read it down there below, this the Liberal government pushing through legislation that would enable or allow for a return to this proof of vaccination system we had. And scary notion. I think it was September of that year, 2021, when I could not go have a coffee. That legislation came in, the proof of the mandates requiring that you show proof of vaccination came in on September 22nd. And I know because that's my anniversary, my wife and I, that was our wedding anniversary. And so we couldn't go out to dinner that night because we didn't have proof of vaccination. And as chance would have it, there was a restaurant, a pub in Kingston, Ontario, owned by a gentleman by the name of Kelly Hale, called Jack Tuesdays, that wasn't playing along. We were able to go out and have dinner that night. Pub fare. Wasn't a fancy 5-star restaurant. It was basically like a roadhouse. But you know what? It was wonderful. um, they had actually, I remember it well. Kelly in the front in the I guess I'll call it the vestibule area where you come into the restaurant. He had a chair there with a sign saying that this chair was for the government's checker, who if the government wants to check for vaccination status, well, they're welcome to have a government employee sitting there and checking. But if the seat is empty, that means they're not enforcing it, because he wasn't going to, because it contravened all manner of privacy legislation in this country. So could we be going back to that? A lot of people tend to think, I think there's a tendency people have to stick inside their echo chambers, and it's true on the right and it's true on the left. And so there's a tendency to believe, I've spoken to people who, oh, there's no way Trudeau gets back in. It's an impossibility. Could never happen. And I genuinely think they're stuck in their echo chamber, and they're just hearing people bemoaning and trashing Trudeau. I think if you take a more objective look at it, a more honest look at it, and kind of park your biases to the side, I see the very real potential for Trudeau to get reelected. I was watching him address the Council on Foreign Relations in New York City about a week or so ago. And during his address, you can check it on here if you can handle listening to him talk. He's gotten better. His public speaking skills have improved. He does not and and nearly as much as he used to. That's a normal affectation. All of us have it. But with Trudeau, it was over the top. And what I've noticed is that when he makes a pause now, he kind of draws his lips in and seems to be just breathing in. And it strikes me that he has been well coached, so that when you're finding yourself unable to complete a thought and you're struggling to find words to say, rather than saying or ah, just take a pause, pull your lips in, draw a breath, and use that time to collect your thoughts so that things come out in a more coherent fashion and you don't sound as stumbling. And I think he's taken it to heart. And so he comes across as more prime ministerial in that respect. And we've got something of a culture war going on in this country. The Liberals, the NDP, anyone on the left side of the political spectrum has wrapped themselves in this progressive label. And not only are they wrapping themselves in it, they're defining themselves as being the progressives. And progress sounds like a good thing. Do you want to go backwards, or do you want to progress? Progress, it's positive. If you're not for progress, well, then you're an old dinosaur, a troglodyte, a knuckle dragger. And so the question I would ask is, where are we progressing to? Are we progressing to something good, or are we progressing towards something bad? In a recent post to Facebook, I equated it to, are we progressing to the top of the mountain, or are we progressing down into a dark, scary valley? And my bias right up front, I think we're heading straight down into the valley. And you can look, the family unit in this country is being, for decades now, has been decimated. Divorce rates are through the roof. Kids grow up now without the stability of a home. And it happened before. It happened in the 40s and the 50s and the 30s. It happened in years past, but not to the extent that it's happening now. Now it's de rigueur. Now it's natural. Now if a kid's parents stay together, that kid is an outlier. a lucky, fortunate outlier who has a stable home upbringing, not with a mother dating or a father dating, and wondering who are going to be the influential characters, adult figures in their day-to-day lives. It's hell in a handbasket is an old tired expression, but that's where we're heading. And we've been on this road for a long time. And I see it going further, but it's being deemed and it's being packaged and it's being sold as progress, as a good thing. And people determining their own sex based on their gender, based on subjective feelings and everything else. But anyway, I've rambled on long enough, 15 minutes. Probably going to do one of these tomorrow. I want to talk about faith. I want to talk about a passage in Luke. I think it's in chapter 5, with respect when Jesus meets the leper. There are a couple passages in Luke. One where there are, I think, 10 lepers. That comes later. But this one is one single leper. And Jesus actually makes physical contact with him. He touches him. So that'll be the topic of my next video that I do probably tomorrow. So thanks for watching. God bless. Whoever gave me the like, thank you. You're welcome to like, share, subscribe, do all those things. Everyone knows when you're checking your phone or your device or your computer or whatever, and you see that you've had lots of reaction, there's a little chemical reaction that happens in the brain. We get little happy drugs called either dopamine or endorphins or whatever it is. I'm not going to read up on it again, which is what makes social media so addicting, is because people need their little dopamine or endorphin fix. I try to be aware of it so that I can mitigate it, but it's still there. So God bless, and we'll talk to you later. I kept it under 20 minutes. Night all.